Welcome. I'm Joni Martin. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator and I'm located in Southwest Wisconsin. I'm here to share a video with some ideas, tips, and tricks to use your 6x6 papers on what I think is a really pretty card. So here's our card, and it may not be as easy to see in the camera, but this is embossed, which just adds an additional richness, and it's a great way to use those 6x6 papers. So we're going to start with a Night of Navy card base. And I know it's Night of Navy in this paper pack because Stampin' Up is kind enough to include the colors that are in each of the papers. All of our print papers on the back will be a sheet that includes the list of colors. So that's great. So I did a Night of Navy, and my card base is 8.5 by 5.5. But I have a blog post linked underneath this video, and you can find all the numbers there. We're going to need 2 basic whites, and they're going to be 4 by 5.25. And this smaller mat right here, this piece right here, that's blueberry bushel. And I cut that 3.5 by 4.25. But again, all those numbers will be underneath. Let's talk about cutting our 6x6 paper. The first thing I do when I have a 6x6 is I cut off the piece I need for the envelope flap because we don't want to send this beautiful card in a naked envelope. So I cut off 2.25 by 6. Then I like to include a little 1/2-inch strip on the inside. And I'll show you that when we get to that part. So that's this piece. And what's left is 3.25 by 6. But I cut some of that off because I wanted it to be centered in the middle of that. And in order to center it, you want this piece to be 3.25 by 4.5. So that's what we have. Let's go and talk about the embossing. I'm going to use time-worn type. And when I get my embossing folders, I add a label with the name, and I add the plate sandwich, meaning for this one, I'm going to use plates 1 and 4. And when you're using 4, as your accompanying plate to number 1, that means it's one of our 3D folders and it's thicker. And sometimes these thicker folders while they make a great impression, they're a little hard on your print papers. So what I do is I attach my print paper to the mat before I emboss it, and that just gives it a little bit of stability and makes it easier to emboss. So let's do that step first. I'm using Seal Plus Tape Runner. You want to use whatever adhesive you're most comfortable with. So we're going to do that first. And look at this paper. It's just as pretty on the back as it is on the front. You could use the same technique with the back of the paper. We have beautiful coordinating products and lovely 6x6 papers. But sometimes the 6x6 papers are a bit of a challenge. We're just not used to working with them like we are the 12x12. So this is a card idea that would work great with 6x6 papers. And if you love the idea, you can cut up your 12x12 papers for it. So here's my pretty paper, and what I like about it is, look, it's going to look great whichever way you do it. I'm going to call this the bottom and that the top. Now, to emboss, I'm grabbing my time-worn type embossing folder. Stampin' Up has kindly put a line down here for me. What I don't want to do is push it all the way to the top, and I know some of my card makers and who are new to card making think, well, then it will stay straight. But it will also leave a spot at the top that's not embossed. So we don't ever want to push it all the way to the top. So we're going to line it up here. And when I send it through, I'm going to make sure the Stampin' Up logo's on top and my fold is first. Our cut and emboss machine come with the plates already numbered. And as I told you, I need plate 1. Plate 1 you're going to use every time, and it's always on the bottom. And then plate 4 is going to go on top. We don't want to send an embossing folder through without a plate on top. They can catch and tear. I'm moving my paper because the cut and emboss machine is just going to like it better if it's not. It's going to grip better not on paper. So here's my machine. I have my sandwich that I showed you. Plate 1, embossing folder, fold up, Stampin' Up logo on top, and plate 4 on top of that. And I'm just going to send it through. And that's when a little magic happens. It goes from 2 sheets of paper glued together to this beautiful texture on a paper. We're done with this. We're just going to fold up the sides and put it away. Put it aside. Doesn't take up as much room on my table that way. Okay, let's get this back. And if you've never tried an embossing folder before, really, it's just like magic what a difference they make in your paper. And such an easy way to do it. So I'm hoping you can see some of the embossing, but it really does add to your paper. So then I have my basic white that's 4 by 5 1/4, and we cut 2 of those, and I'm going to grab one of them. That's going to be the piece underneath. But before I attach it, see this pretty ribbon? It's gorgeous. It is called Silver and White Sheer Ribbon. It's from the mini catalog, which ends the 3rd of January, but this ribbon's carrying over, so you'll probably be able to find it online. I'm going to cut 16 inches. Honestly, if you're just tying a knot, not making a bow, my rule is 3 times the width. And this is 4 3/4. So 15 inches would probably be plenty. Let's do that. Sometimes a little longer ribbon is easier for me. I have arthritis in my fingers and hands, and they don't always do what I want them to do. So anything to make it easier sometimes works too. Okay. Now I want my ribbon, about a 1/2 inch from the bottom. So I'm going to use this. This is my grid paper. That's kind of how I work. It just helps me keep things straight. A 1/2 inch would be 2 squares on here because they're 1/4 inch squares. I'm going to put a glue dot roughly where I want that knot to land. It will help me line up my ribbon, and it will also help me as I go to knot it. So I'm just going to grab a glue dot from here, and I'm going to put it about here. Then we're going to put the ribbon behind, just like so. And again, I'm at a 1/2 inch. And see how I can use that black line? And you don't really have to be this exact, but it's a little easier for me. And before I knot, like, oh, I don't have quite enough there. There we go. And now I'm going to make a knot. And that glue dot is going to catch that first knot for me so that it kind of stays in place. And it's going to land where I wanted my knot. So that's going to go right there. And I'm really off on the ribbon, and the good thing about the glue dot is, look, I can just carefully pull it back and give myself a touch more ribbon. Let's try that. And guys, you don't have to be exact. It's a piece of ribbon on card. And perhaps I might spend too much time getting it right where I want it. And at the end, you have your ribbon on your card, and it looks great regardless. So, okay, that's easier. And I can kind of play with it. And then I'm just going to tie a knot. And I don't tend to trim my ribbons until I have them on the card front where I can see how it's kind of landing. Like, I know I have way too much, I have more ribbon than I need here, but we'll trim that up later. Now, before we attach it to our white piece, we're going to use dimensionals. And dimensionals are like little pieces of foam that are sticky on both sides. They're wonderful. And I'm going to just do a slight adjustment here so my ribbon's somewhat straight. And then the dimensionals will add some dimension, hence the name, but they will kind of pop it up a little bit. But the other thing they're going to do is attach it to the white base and keep my ribbon where I want it, like so. Just like that. Now, if we put them on the bottom, we have to put them on the top of the card. Otherwise, your base will do what's called rocking, and it will kind of push back. We don't want that. That's plenty. You, of course, could use more. And then you're just going to peel the backs off. I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool because that's just a little easier for me. Like so, but you can take off the backs however it works for you. Looks like I have one there that wanted to hang around. All right, now this is getting centered on this card. This is not a difficult card. It comes together quickly. And if you didn't have your Time Worn Type embossing folder, any overall embossing folder would work. Now, sometimes, guys, when I'm working on camera, it's hard to see if I'm straight. This doesn't feel real straight. So I'm going to just gently lift up this side, like so, and do a touch of readjusting. There we go. All right, let's fold our card base in half. And again, if I start straight, I'm more likely to end straight. So we're going to fold it in half like so and give it a nice fold. Let's grab a, this is called a bone folder, and it just helps give it a good fold. My card's going to open this way, but you'd use the same cut and the same fold regardless of how it opened. And now I'm going to attach that to there, like so. Now there's a lot more you could do with this card. This is a great working base, but if you want to put a sentiment on the front of your card, you could stamp and punch a shape or die cut a shape. If you wanted to add some bling, you could do that. I'm kind of a less is more kind of person, so I tend to I want to focus on the paper and this really pretty ribbon. So now that I have it on the front, now obviously I don't want it down that far. I'm going to kind of give it one more nudge so I can see where the ribbon's really going to fall when it's tight. And then I'm just going to trim. All right, let's talk about your envelope flap and the inside of your card. So remember, we cut this 2 1/4 by 6 piece of paper. I'm going to grab an envelope flap here. Oh, here it is. And I'm going to actually fold the envelope back. And this is what we're covering. And remember, we said there isn't really an up or down, but I'm going to call this the bottom. So the top of my paper is going to go against the back of the envelope. And I'm holding it up to kind of form a wall, because that gives me something to push against. Now, let's grab some green glue. This is your multi-purpose liquid glue. It's your best option. That was a brand new one, and we don't need it yet, so I'm not going to open it. And I'm putting adhesive just around the outside. And I'm putting it on the envelope flap rather than this print paper, because my print paper is bigger than my envelope flap. And you always want to put adhesive on the smaller piece. It just saves you having adhesive go where you don't want it. So see how I'm kind of going just around the outside? I don't need a ton of glue, but I kind of want to go everywhere there. And what that does is, then my envelope flap is secure to that, or my strip of paper is secure to my envelope flap, and we're not going to have it kind of catch on a postal machine and go wonky. There we go. All right, that's done. We're going to give our white glue a chance to, multi-purpose glue a chance to set up. Now for the inside, I stamped a sentiment in Blueberry Bushel, which is this color we used on the mat, from the stamp set called Lasting Joy. There's lots of choices, and almost all of them would work with this card, but I need a birthday card. But you could do I'm so thankful, may the years ahead be filled with lasting joy, I missed your birthday. I stamp that a lot. I'm thinking of you, so lots of choices here. I chose birthday wishes. Now, if we just put that in there, it looks good. The ink matches, but let's just step it up a little bit. We're going to put a very fine line of glue along the bottom here, or along the top rather. Then this pretty piece of paper, I'm lining up with the top. It can go anywhere on your card insert. You're just adding a touch of color. Sometimes in class people prefer to put it on the bottom or on the side. I just tend to put it on the top. Okay, and then this is what I'm doing. I'm tapping it to make sure that I have it straight along here, because if it's straight here, it will be straight along there. Now it's just time to cut. So I'm grabbing my paper snips and I'm using my card base as my guide. I'm going to trim off there and there. And while I have these out, let's do the envelope flap too. And I'm using the flap as my guide, and I'm just cutting around it. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. They're just going to be so impressed when they see this beautiful envelope. Like, I want to open this card first. This looks, doesn't it? Just look what that does for a basic plain envelope. Okay, scraps away. Let's finish up this card. I'm going to grab my tape runner again, because that's the adhesive I'm really comfortable with. If you prefer the liquid glue, you can use that too. You don't need a lot. But look what that does to the inside of your card. It brings the front of the card to the inside and finishes it. So there's our card. The paper pack I used was Meandering Meadow, but you could do this with any print paper and you'll come up with a beautiful card. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. I really appreciate that. If you know of another paper crafter who you think might also enjoy this, I'd love if you'd spread the word. Check out Scrapping with Joni's YouTube channel. Thanks much. Have a great day.